What does fulfillment mean to you? Or what does living a fulfilling life mean to you? Hi, I'm Zhaleh and I am a career reinvention coach. I work with mid career STEM professionals who are at a point in their career where they feel stagnant and are considering creating their own career path that lights them up. I support them in taking the first steps toward this transition. In this episode, I want to talk about something really foundational when it comes to living a fulfilling life. As humans, we naturally move toward making our lives feel better. We all want to live better lives, but it's not always easy. We are all born into families, cultures, and societies that draw roadmaps for our lives and for what happiness should look like from very early on. Most of us move from one life stage to the next without much thinking. We go to school, then university, then marriage, then having kids, then working until retirement. This formula for a good life has been given to many of us, and many of us follow it because we think that if we do, it will lead to fulfillment. For some, it can. For others, there comes a point in life where they need to rethink everything. That was my case for sure. Until a few years ago, in my role as an architect, I was following a path. At the beginning, it was fulfilling. Later on, I started to notice that my level of contentment with my work and with my life in general had dropped. I wasn't sure what exactly needed to change. Did I need to change my office? Did I need to change careers? Was it about not having a partner? Was it my rainy city, Vancouver? Was it living an immigrant life in Canada? Or maybe all of them together? From the outside, it wasn't obvious. I was living a normal, successful life, going to work, performing as before, socializing after work. But inside, I could feel I wasn't content. And I couldn't quite put my finger on what needed to shift so that I could feel fulfilled again. One night after work, I was browsing in a bookstore and a book caught my attention: The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I flipped through it and the table of contents piqued my interest. I ended up getting both the book and the workbook, and I spent a few months reading and answering the questions in it. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode. For the very first time in that workbook, I wrote a vision for my life. Growing up as a queer person in Iran, I couldn't really picture a happy future for myself. If anything, the future seemed dark and lonely. So I stopped thinking about my future altogether and started living day by day. I had no real plans for my future other than what I thought I had to do, like going to university so that I could work with my degree. After immigrating to Canada, I still wasn't thinking about the future, as if my mind had lost that ability. The question of what is your 5 year plan in job interviews was very hard for me to answer. So, when I read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and followed the instructions to write visions for my life, I was really struggling to come up with answers. But those visioning exercises helped me reconnect with a part of myself that I had lost touch with. The first visioning exercise was really hard, but each time I sat down to reflect on my life vision, it got easier. I started writing life visions at different intervals, first yearly, then twice a year, and now sometimes quarterly. So, why is it important to take time to reflect on our life vision? It becomes important when we are seeking fulfillment in our lives. We feel fulfilled when we live in alignment with our deeper desires and values. That's why we need to take time to identify those desires and values, and from there create a vision for our life so we can move forward in a way that's aligned with what truly matters to us. I call this self-leadership. You become the leader of your life, the creator of your life. Now that we know why having a vision for our life is important, let's look at what a visioning exercise is. Basically, you need to think about what you want in your life. For many of us, that question of what do you want is hard to answer. Sometimes because we didn't have the privilege or space to think about what we want due to life circumstances. Or it might feel hard to answer because we are afraid to name what we really want in case we don't get there and feel bad later. So it is understandable that this question can feel intimidating. But we do need to think about what we want if we are seeking fulfillment in life. We can do a visioning for our life in general or for a specific area in life like relationships, career, or health. Any area that we feel could be improved, we can start by creating a vision for it. A vision is simply a loose roadmap for our mind. It gives us some general directions. Some examples of general directions could be: I want to express myself more in my life. I want to be of service to my community. I want to raise good children, or I want to be close to nature. Without a vision, our mind has no clear destination to move toward, and that's when we can start to feel lost. We define some destinations, but we don't have the information to know how to get to those destinations yet. And that's totally okay. Once we have even a loose roadmap, we can let it sit in the background and our mind will start spotting the signpost for the very next steps in that direction. To make this a bit more tangible, I'm going to share a few examples to show how a visioning exercise helps our mind see the signposts in our desired direction. This is one of my favorite examples. Imagine that you set a goal to count the yellow cars on the street. Once you give that mission to your mind, you start to see all the yellow cars that are passing by. So here's the thing: those yellow cars were passing by before as well. But because you gave your mind the mission to count them, now your mind is finding the information you're looking for, and your eyes are noticing the yellow cars. That is the power of our mind when it has a mission. So the same goes for our life vision. We define the destinations and our minds start to see all the possible doors that can lead to those destinations. As another example, imagine you're on a hike. You know you want to get to the peak of the mountain. The path might not be clear, but you know your destination. You start walking, and at each moment, you look for the next marker along the way that points to the peak. You move toward that marker, then you look again to find the next one. Eventually, you get to the top, even though you didn't know what the whole path would look like when you started. The information was revealed to you as you walked, one marker at a time. Because you had a destination in mind, your mind was looking for those markers. Another hiker might choose to go to the river instead, and their mind would look for different markers. Another good analogy is wayfinding in a metro system. Information is given one step at a time. You look at the map, see that to get to your destination, you need to take the pink line, for instance. And then your mind starts looking for the signs to the pink line. That's all you need to do in that moment to get on the pink line. When you arrive at your station, new signs tell you which exit to take. The information reveals itself at the right time, and you don't need to know the whole path from the start. These examples illustrate two things. One, the importance of having a vision in life so that our mind has a direction to pursue to lead us to fulfillment. And two, that the information, the next step, the how, reveals itself as we start moving, one step at a time. This is important to remember whenever we feel overwhelmed by not knowing the whole way or all the details of how to reach our vision. We only need to know the next step in each moment. Rumi says it beautifully: as you start to walk on the path appears. To summarize, in this episode, I talked about fulfillment, that we feel fulfilled when we live in alignment with our deep desires and values. I talked about the importance of pausing and reflecting on what we actually want so we can create a loose vision for our life. I shared that when we have that vision, our mind has something to move toward, and it can start finding the immediate next steps for us, one step at a time. I highlighted that we don't need to know the whole way. We only need to know the next step in each moment. That can take a lot of weight off our shoulders and help us focus on the now and on this step of the way, while we still hold the big picture in mind. If you enjoyed this episode, then subscribe so you don't miss future ones and share it with anyone who may need it. If you'd like to talk about where you are now, where you want to be, and learn how I can support you, click the link in the description to book a 1-hour complimentary consultation call. Thank you.